What is going on, my fellow fat kids? The 2022 NHL offseason is seeming like it will be a complete doomsday scenario for the Boston Bruins. Marchand, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, and Riley are all out long-term. Patrice Bergeron may or may not be retiring. And rumor has it, David Pasternak may want out of town. In this video, we will be looking at the absolute worst case scenario for Boston, where Bergeron retires and Pasternak wants out of town. And we're going to be seeing if we can make the best out of this dire situation. Before getting into any roster moves, we will start by filling the coaching vacancy in Boston, which is just something else to add on top of the pile of shit that is the Bruins organization in 2022. I will be bringing the team in more of a rebuilding direction, so I will not be targeting any of the big names out there like Barry Trotz or Pete DeBoer, but instead give a young assistant coach a chance at being a head coach. To fill that role, I'll look to Spencer Carberry, who is currently an assistant coach for the Leafs. Carberry won the 2021 AHL Coach of the Year, and in his first season with the Leafs, the team saw major improvement. So I would be willing to give him a shot at head coach, especially because I'm not expecting any success this season anyways. Moving on to the trades, let's start off big here with the Pasternak trade. When you're shipping a 26-year-old franchise goal scorer on a very cheap contract, you need to make sure that you're receiving multiple core pieces back that will be on your team for years to come. I think the best trade partner here will be the LA Kings. They have multiple A-plus prospects in Turcotte and Byfield that they don't really necessarily need. And after losing a tight series in 7 this year, they will be looking to add significant pieces this offseason to push them over the edge. And what better pieces there than David Pasternak? In this trade, Boston acquires another young goal-scoring winger who is coming off a breakout season to replace Pasternak right now in Adrian Kempe, a very reliable young top 4 D-man who can play top 2 in a pinch in Matt Roy. They move up 1 round in the draft. And the big one, they acquire Alex Turcotte, who is a borderline top 10 prospect in the NHL. He probably cracks that top 10. Byfield may have been more desirable for Boston than Turcotte, but I don't think that with everything else they're giving up in this deal, that LA would be willing to part with Byfield. On the Kings side, although it hurts to give up Kempe, who is coming off a breakout season, if it means that you can get David Pasternak, you do it every single time. For Roy, they will have Brandt Clark coming up soon, who will hopefully be even better than Roy is. And for Turcotte, sure, it hurts giving him up, but they still have Byfield in the system, who should be their number 1 center for at least a decade. After that bombshell of a Pasternak trade, we still have one more to go over for this offseason, and it is with another player that has been rumored to be on the move for a while, which is Jake DeBrusk. DeBrusk definitely has some value to him, being a 25 goal scorer at just 25 years old. At this point, the team's biggest need is a temporary first-line center while Turcotte develops. I have decided to make a pure 1-for-1 hockey trade with the New Jersey Devils, which sends DeBrusk to New Jersey for Pavel Zacha. I think the Devils would probably do this move because DeBrusk is the younger player who puts up more goals and more points, and New Jersey could really use another goal scorer to complement their many passers. New Jersey's leading goal scorer last season had only 26 compared to DeBrusk's 25. On Boston's side, we receive a 6'3" natural center who has been stuck on the wing for a while now due to New Jersey's center depth. Zacha, being a former 6th overall pick, has some unrealized potential that he can hopefully uncover with a change of scenery. He's pretty responsible defensively, so now if he could just up his offensive output a couple notches, he could be a long-term top 6 player for Boston. I feel like that Zacha trade may have upset some Boston fans, but you need to remember that when a player actively wants out of town like DeBrusk does, that diminishes his value, so you can't get as big of a return as you may have hoped for initially. Well, that's it for the trades, so let's move on to the RFA signings. Firstly, we lock up Studnicka, who can step into the lineup if there are any injuries, or if the bottom 6 needs a little shakeup. Then we have our 2 newly acquired forwards, Kempe and Zacha. With Kempe, I decided to go long-term because having a breakout season like he did this past one at 25 years old is usually a good sign of things to come. And it's better to lock him up now for a reasonable $6 million than have him take an even bigger step next year and demand 8+. Zacha, on the other hand, I'm not quite as confident in his long-term position on this team, so I decided to just give him a 1-year contract at an identical cap hit to DeBrusk to let him prove that he can be an effective top 6 center on this team. Moving on to the UFAs, I didn't think that making a big splash in the market would be too beneficial for us given that we're starting a rebuild/retool, so I re-signed Curtis Lazar to play 4th line and picked up Vinny Hinostroza to hopefully slightly increase the depth scoring, which was an issue for Boston last year. That's all the moves that I have in stored, so I guess it's time to look at the lines. Keep in mind that these are the lines with many key pieces injured. Once everyone returns from injury, this team will be much more competitive than they currently look on paper. depending on how this team performs, maybe a Marchand trade could be in store for next season if this team really shits the bed and finishes like bottom 10 in the league. But that is a story for next offseason. Well, that's all for now. Work out, eat healthy. I'm just kidding. See you in the next one.